All right, welcome everyone. It is 5 o'clock, so I'm going to get started here. Okay, so today we're going to be doing a little bit of training on financial aid basics and getting ready for the summer, especially for our junior students, right? So if you can help me out by putting your student's grade in the chat, that would help out immensely. Just so I know if we have younger students, I'll kind of point out some things that we have along the way. Okay, now let's kind of get into it straight away, right? So just some housekeeping things, right? So I always like to go on kind of about kind of like what's going on with financial aid, right? We'll also talk about kind of like the financial aid process, right? Now, if you do need kind of the replay or you kind of want to watch it over again, so that you can kind of fully understand the information. If you're in our Facebook group, we will have we'll have a post in the Facebook group. Go ahead and kind of respond to that. We will go ahead and provide you with the link, right? If you're in our coaching program, you can you can go to our private YouTube channel and you can watch the replay there. Okay. So just a little bit about me, right? My name is Coach David. You guys probably see me all the time here and there, right? I am a former kind of college and law school admission reader, right? I was a lawyer in my past life, right? And I've been working with students on financial aid and college admissions for the past 16 years. Okay. Now, over those past 16 years, I've been able to save millions of dollars for families, right? I want to make sure that I can do that for your family as well. Okay. So, class of 2026, especially, right? You do need to be listening to this, right? The time to prepare is now, right? A lot of families might be thinking, "Oh, it's we're still early. It's okay." Well, not really, right? For some of our families, we've been talking to them for years about how to prepare, do different things so that they can prepare their finances in the right way to maximize their college savings. Okay. So, I do always start with financial aid and breaking news, right? So a lot of stuff has been happening in the financial aid world, right? Uh, None of it is good, right? Unfortunately, I have some more bad news for you, right? So something that has been on kind of it's always it's been rumors and rumors, right? But they actually just passed a new plan through the House of Representatives recently, right? And it would kind of limit the student borrowing and the repayment options on federal student loans. Okay. Now, they're calling this the Student Success and Taxpayer Savings Plan. Okay. It's a good name. It's kind of like they put a nice name on a thing that is actually going to hurt a lot of people, right? Now, this has kind of been touted as a way for the new administration to uh, help with the tax cut plan that they have, right? So if there's less taxpayer dollars going to fund, student loans, things like that, obviously there's less money that's needed. People are going to get a tax cut, right? Now there's new borrowing caps, right? So for undergrads, they're capping the kind of limit of money that you can borrow at $50,000, right? For graduate students, they're thinking about capping it at $100,000, right? This is going to severely impact students that are going to any type of school, whether it's just college or they're going to medical school or this or that, right? Here's the reason why. A year of medical school costs $125,000. If a student can only barely pay, or not even the full thing, only pay for 1 year, right, of medical school, well, how are they going to pay for the other three? Okay. Um, that's just something that I'm thinking about right now, and I think a lot of institutions are also going to think about it. I don't know if this will actually pass, but again, it's new information that I think I should pass on to you guys, right? There's another situation that's happening with the repayment of loans, right? So if any of you parents out there do have loans, right, you might have been on an income-driven repayment plan. Okay. The income-driven repayment plan caps the payments that you can make over the course of a year to a percentage tied to your income, right? They're trying to get rid of that as well. They're also trying to get rid of unemployment deferment or economic hardship deferment. Okay. What that means is, so let's say that you are on an income-driven repayment plan, right? Let's say you're making $100 a month, right? Or let's say $100 a year, just to make it easy, right? Out of that $100 a year, they were able to take $8, 8% of your income to pay back your taxes. Okay. Now what they're saying is that even if you're unemployed and you no longer have income, we're no longer going to defer it. You still have to be making payments, right? Or let's say that you run into an economic hardship. Let's say that there's a extended kind of like medical bills that your family now has, and you're trying to take care of that. They're not going to give a deferment for that either, right? Now, this is going to hurt a lot of people. It's going to put a lot of people into the red even further, people that are trying to do the right thing and pay back their loans. right? I understand the logic of the government trying to do this, right? They're trying to get rid of their kind of debt sheet and you know, um, secure some of that money back. But I think it's going to cause more problems than it's going to solve. Okay. Another problem that is going to come up is the Pell Grant. Now, the Pell Grant has been a staple of kind of American education for low-income students for several decades, right? I'd probably say 4 or 5 decades, right? Now, normally what happens is that a student, in order to be eligible for the Pell Grant, needs to be a full-time student. Now, what does it mean to be a full-time student? Well, if your school's on a semester basis, that means that you're taking 12 units a semester, right? Usually 3 or 4 classes, depending on the classes that you're taking, right? With the new Pell Grant plan that they were trying to roll out, they're trying to make it so that you have to take 30 units a year. Okay. That is 5 classes a semester. I don't know if parents, you guys can remember back to when you were taking college classes, but me, I cannot take 5 classes a semester and sustain anything, right? I would be exhausted, right? And my grades probably wouldn't be that great, right? But again, I always like to make light of it, right? But look on the bright side, we might get a tax cut. And again, the key word here is might, right? It's not guaranteed that it is. It's not built into the plan. It's that we might get a tax cut from these things, right? Unfortunately, like I said, no good news, right? But I am super invested in this topic. And so I'll try to bring you guys new information each and every year or each and every week, right? So that we can discuss it. If you guys have questions, you can definitely reach out. Okay. But let's get into the kind of training, right? My fair warning for all of our families coming to the financial aid kind of secrets trainings is this, right? I always say, if you are driving around in an Italian stallion Ferrari and you have it parked in your garage and you drive it every day, you probably don't need me, right? Because you probably make too much money, right? There is such a thing as too much money for the purposes of college financial aid, right? But if you're a normal family trying to get by, maybe you take a vacation every year, you guys are comfortable, right? Well, there still might be opportunities for your family, right? And so through our trainings, we want to make sure that we are trying to give you insights and tips in how to prepare your family so that you can save money on college, right? Now, again, before we get to our training, I always have this quick word from our sponsor. I always say there are two different sides of the coin when it comes to college, right? One, right, is paying for it, right? The more important part of it is actually getting in, right? And so I do want to have a quick word from our sponsor. For those of you guys that do not know, right, our company name has changed to Egelloc, right? We were formerly known as College Admission Secrets, hence financial aid secrets, right? But we have changed our name. Our company is growing, and we have changed it to Egelloc, right? For those that are thinking, why did you change it to Egelloc? College Admission Secrets was so much easier, right? The reason we changed it to Egelloc is that Egelloc, if you flip it around, spells college, right? Once you have seen it, you'll never be able to unsee it. Now, I tried to do that for financial aid secrets, but it would be a really weird word that we wouldn't be able to actually pronounce. Okay. So for right now, it's still financial aid secrets. Okay. There is a question there. Let's see if it's kind of in line, right? With 36 trillion in national debt and climbing, they have to reduce it in many ways. The best thing to do, focus on would be controlling inflation of college costs. They have no incentive to keep them under control, so they're increasing the 5x, the general inflation rate due to bureaucratic bloat. Yes, there is a lot of bureaucratic bloat, right? I don't want to get political here. All I'm trying to do is provide you the information. These are the things that are happening, right? The national debt is it's unprecedented, right? Inflation is crazy, right? I tell these people every day, right? I tell you guys what is going on kind of in the world where I'm going, right? My best kind of case is Costco, right? I go and buy my eggs, right? They've gone up 60% in the last 3 weeks, right? So I see it on the ground, right? Obviously, colleges are also increasing prices due to inflation, all these different things, right? So we have to keep in mind kind of what's going on in the world, right? I'll try to provide that information as quickly as I know it to you guys as well. Okay. Now, what I wanted to kind of go and tell you guys about was the part about getting into college, right? We do have a program that can help your student, right? If you do have a junior right now and they don't really have a plan of how they're going to tackle the applications, right? We do have our college app intensive. Okay. It is broken up into 2 separate weekends, right? The first weekend is a 1 day Saturday event. And it's happening kind of right now, right? In April, May, and June, we work with students to get their brainstorms more to a kind of drafting phase, right? A lot of our students have been able to come out with very solid drafts of their PIQs and personal statement, right? The second part of the College App Intensive is our accelerator. It's a 2-day event, Saturday and Sunday. It is in July, August, and September, virtual and in person, right? We have different options for you, right? And, right, it is to try to get your drafts that you worked on for your Kickstart ready for final draft, okay? If you are interested, you can go ahead to collegeappintensive.com, right, to get more information. I will also have links and phone numbers that you can text later on, okay? All right, so the first thing that you guys need to do in this process is understand the financial aid process. Okay. Now, a lot of people think that they understand what the financial aid process is, and they're like, oh, well, it's FAFSA, right? That's step one. There's many steps after, right? But the first step we are going to be going over is something that a lot of families are familiar with, which is FAFSA, right? But we'll kind of get there. But before we get there, right? Financial aid, what is it? Okay, now just a generic definition is financial aid is money given to students and families in order to make college more affordable, right? There's a lot of different names that colleges and kind of, people call it, right? They might call it a grant or a scholarship, work study, institutional aid, departmental aid, loans, right? All of these things are considered financial aid. Now, there's a lot of people out there and they're probably thinking, how is a loan financial aid? It's something that they give to us, yes, but we have to pay it back later, right? Unfortunately, for colleges, it is considered financial aid. So let's say the college that you're going to is $50,000 a year, and they give you a $50,000 loan so that you can attend college, right? They consider that they have given you 100% financial aid, okay? So just keep that in mind. They're a little tricky like that, okay? But when it comes to kind of us and when we're talking about financial aid, right? I only have two buckets of money. There's free money and there are loans, okay? The loans, everyone understands, right? You have a house loan, a car loan, or whatever loan, right? The free money is just any money that you don't have to pay back. Whatever it's called, all you have to do is look, do I need to pay this back or not, right? That is the money that I'm trying to get for your family. The loans are always part of it, right? But the free money is where I want to save you money, okay? So again, as we're kind of going through here, as you're asking your question, remember, there's nothing different between a grant and a scholarship. It's all free money, right? Again, if it is free money, there's not too many questions to ask, right? But again, remember in the world of Coach David's financial aid, it's just free money and loans. That's the only two categories that we have. Okay. Again, like I said, the first step is the FAFSA. Okay. The FAFSA stands for the Free Application for Student Aid. Okay. Now, in any normal year, besides the current year, right, or like the 2024 kind of FAFSA opening, right, and the 2023 FAFSA opening, right, the normal date of opening is October 1st, right? But for the class of 2025, it was December 1st, right? For the class of 2026, right, it already opened, right? But, right, or it is going to open, right? But I am hoping that it will be October 1st. I'm not 100% sure, right? There's been a lot of technical issues with the website, right? There were errors on the website, but they kind of, they fired everyone at the U.S. Department of Education, so there was no one to take care of it or fix the problems, right? So am I hopeful that October 1st is going to be the date? No, not really, but we'll see what happens, right? Now, there's a lot of spoof websites or spam websites that try to get your information and things like that. So make sure you're on the right website when you're going to the FAFSA. It is studentaid.gov. Okay, that is the website where you fill out your FAFSA. No other website. If they ask for credit card information, you're on the wrong site. Okay. As you're filling this out, there's a lot of different things that you need. Okay. The first thing that you need is your appropriate year tax return. Okay. So the appropriate year tax return differs depending on when your student's graduating. If they're a class of 2026, which is our next batch of seniors, right, you will need your 2024 tax return, right? If they're a class of 2027, you'll need your 2025, so on and so forth. Okay. So it is the tax return from 2 years before the year your student's going to graduate. Okay. You need your social security number. Okay. Now I know that a lot of people think that they know it by heart, but I know too many people that are one digit off. Okay. Make sure that you know it. Okay. Check the actual card. Okay. You also need an email that you regularly check, right? This email needs to be unique to you, right? You need one unique one for the student, one unique one for the parent. Okay. You also need a unique phone number for each person, right? So you need one unique phone number for the student, one unique number for the parent. Okay. The reason why is because there are two-factor authentications that happen. It needs to happen to a distinct email. It needs to happen to a distinct phone number. Okay. This might be something that you want to check, right? But you might want to see if you can create an account with your email and your phone number. Like, don't go all the way through the process right now because we don't want you to open one yet and mess something up, right? But see if it'll allow you to get to the next step of creating an account, right? There are people that have phone numbers and they've had them for 15 years, but before that, right, like 16 years ago, someone had that phone number and used it for their FAFSA, right? And once it's used, it can never be used again, right? So you might want to think about checking that if possible. Okay. Now, the form itself, right? The form, this is kind of my own one, right? I filled it out kind of as the student, right? So you guys can kind of see what they're going to be asking, right? So they ask, like, where are you a resident of? What state, right? They also ask when you became a resident of that state. They also ask you to be able to pull information from the IRS, right? This is one of those areas where, again, we should talk about this, right? Depending on your family situation, it might be beneficial to pull, it might not be beneficial to pull, right? They also ask what grade you're going into, right? Most students, if they come to us as a senior, will be applying as a freshman, but we also have students that are renewing or they're transfer students, so they might be other years, okay? They'll ask about personal circumstances, if you're a veteran or this, or, if you're a ward of the state, so on and so forth, right? Legally emancipated, right? They'll also ask about kind of like if you were at risk of being homeless or homeless, right? Again, they want to see the student circumstances. They also ask about kind of gender, right? Now, this is what it used to look like. It used to be male, female, non-binary, and prefer not to answer, right? But with the government mandate that there are only two genders on any federal forms, it has been changed back to male and female. Okay. If your student has a question as to how they're supposed to fill this out, we do need to talk about it, right? Because there are only two options now. It is a required question. Okay. They also ask about kind of racial background. This has nothing to do with you getting financial aid. It's just because they want to use it as like a census or like a survey to figure out kind of who is applying for financial aid. They will also ask about citizenship status, right? So there's three different categories here. You could be a US citizen or national, right? An eligible non-citizen is someone that has a permanent resident card, right? A kind of U.S. citizen or neither U.S. citizen or eligible non-citizen. The students that would be selecting this option would be students that might be, DACA recipients or, they're undocumented. Okay. High school completion status, right? You kind of choose what you have completed, right? If it's a high school diploma or GED or homeschooled, whatever it is, you click that. Now, if you did go to a high school and graduated with a high school diploma, they'll ask you where you went to school. They'll also ask about your tax filing status. Now, when I was a student, right, I wasn't filing taxes because I didn't make over the tax filing kind of limit, right? So I would click no here. If your student has gone over that limit, obviously you can click yes, right? They also ask about how many people will be in college, right? Now, unfortunately, the schools that accept just the FAFSA, right, like the UCs and the CSUs, they don't care if there's 10 kids in college or 12 kids in college or just one kid in college, right? The price is going to be the same regardless of this question, but they still ask it anyway. They also ask you to go ahead and put in the colleges. Now, one of the things that you'll see here is that it's 0 out of 20 schools selected, which means that you have a limit of 20 schools that you can put on this form, okay? Most students, the modern student is applying to more than 20 colleges, okay? The UCs are not just one, right? You have to apply to every single UC, every single Cal State or, CSU separately, right? So even if you just apply to all the UCs and like 4 or 5, CSUs, you already have 14 colleges on your list, right? And then students usually apply to anywhere between 10 and 15 private or out-of-state public schools, which means that your list of colleges is going to go over 20, right? Your next question is probably, well, what do we do if we go over 20, right? Well, you have to submit it first, wait till it gets processed, go back in, change this section, and resubmit it. Okay. So keep that in mind. If you do have over 20 colleges, you have to submit it one time, go back, take them all off, add the new schools in, and then submit it again and get it processed again. Okay. So keep that in mind there. Right. So again, this is just the parent side. This is just the student side. There is a parent side to the equation, right? And it has a lot more questions about your financial information, right? So I will kind of be doing that in the coming weeks, right? So just stay tuned for that. Okay. Now, quick takeaways here, right? The financial aid process, it does take a lot of time and patience, right? This is step one, right? You do not want to rush through this process and be like, oh, I'm the first one that turned it in the world, right? I'm the first person that turned in the FAFSA. October 1st, you know, on October 1st at 0001 p.m. or a.m., I turned in the form. It's not important, okay? What is important is that you do it right? And who gets the most money, okay? So remember that. Don't try to be first to the finish line, okay? Now, the question also becomes, well, you said that this is the first step. What are the next steps, right? What else is there? Isn't this it? Unfortunately, the answer is no, okay? So kind of, I'm trying to be a little mean. So I'm like, you wish, right? But here, right after the FAFSA, which is step one, there's also the CSS profile. There's the IDOC, and then each specific college has specific financial aid forms that you need to turn in, right? So there is a lot more in store for you. Okay, it's not just the FAFSA. If that's all you had to do, right? Well, I wouldn't be here, right? I'm here because there are multiple systems, multiple pitfalls that you can fall into, right? So the next one we'll talk about real quickly is the CSS profile. Okay. The CSS profile is the college scholarship search profile. It's used by about 400 institutions. Most of them are private, but there are some out like public schools that also use the CSS profile. One that kind of comes to mind right now is like University of Michigan, right? But the thing you have to understand is that the more information a school is having you turn in, it's another step in trying to disqualify you from getting aid, right? Now, it is very like the kind of FAFSA, but it is also unlike the FAFSA in that it is way more complicated and way more in depth, right? And I say be afraid here, right? You should be, right? So they ask about personal information. They ask about parental information, housing information, residence information, right? Academic information, parent details, parent income. They ask about child support, housing information, parent assets, parent expenses, household summaries, student income and assets, and special circumstances. Now, I don't know if you can see this, right? And this is an older form, but I think it kind of gets to the point, right? So they talk about like this personal information. The personal information isn't just one page. It is literally 4 pages or 5 pages. So under each of these, there's 4 or 5 pages of additional information that you need to give. Okay. Now, the one thing that I will say about the CSS profile is this. There's a lot of the questions on the CSS profile are not required, right? And if we're playing a game with the colleges about, hey, I want you to give me money, but I and we are trying to strategize to how to do that, the least amount of information you can give to them is the best. Okay. So if there are things that are optional on either the FAFSA or the CSS profile or any additional forms, what should you guys be doing? Not providing that information. Okay, so keep that in mind there. Okay. Now, for class of 2026, because I see a bunch of people answer that they have an 11th grader or a junior, right? This is how you need to be preparing this summer, right? The first thing that you need to do is get your taxes filed. Okay. Now, the normal date for filing your taxes was 2 weeks ago, right? But I know that a lot of our families did file their taxes. I also know a lot of families that said, oh, like my tax person always files for an extension for us, right? But unfortunately, this is not the year that you want to file for that extension, okay? If you do file it for an extension, it's like October 15th that you can turn in your taxes. But, right, a lot of people and a lot of CPAs, right? And again, I'm not trying to badmouth a whole profession, but a lot of CPAs automatically file an extension for every single person they're helping because they want more time. Not because they need more time, but they just want more time. Okay. So if you want to talk to your CPA or your tax preparer, whoever it is, you might want to try to get them the taxes filed early this year. Okay. So we need to make sure that we have them early so we can start strategizing. Okay. So that is kind of the first part, right? The next part is you need to understand the financial aid kind of timeline, right? So that you understand when things need to get in, because a lot of people misunderstand when financial aid forms need to be turned in. A lot of people understand, well, oh yeah, April, right? For juniors right now, right? They're going to go through senior year. In April, they're going to learn their kind of college results, and then we'll apply for financial aid then. Unfortunately, that is too late. Okay. The financial aid forms go in concurrently with your applications, right? Especially if you're applying early action or early decision. Okay. If you are applying early action or early decision, a lot of your financial aid kind of paperwork does need to be turned in at the same time. Okay. So it's not something that happens after, it happens at the same time. So if we kind of look, right, your 2024 taxes are due on April 15th, right? Again, half of the people have done it, half the people haven't, right? August 2025, right? Senior year starts. Then by December, most of your college and financial aid applications will already be submitted. Yes, I know it doesn't make sense. You don't know where you're going yet, but you have to turn in the financial aid. Yes, that is the case, right? So even though you don't know where you're going to be headed, you have to apply for financial aid at every single campus that you're applying to. Okay. And then by April, we should have all the results back and all of our financial aid results back as well. Okay. So that is the timeline there. Right. Now, how can we help? Right. We are here to make sure that you get your questions answered. Right. So if you have, a question, reach out on Facebook or Discord or email, right? Wherever you can, right? I've seen too many families go into this blind, or they have a consultation with me and they're like, oh, well, I think I can do it on my own. And then they come back to me after their students into a school, they didn't get any money, and they're like, can you help me now? And unfortunately, my answer is no, right? Because you already have messed it up, right? So make sure to talk to us before you take any action, right? Whether you go with us or not, well, that's your choice, right? I just provide you, here are the options, here's the service. If it makes sense for your family, go for it, right? But if you don't be angry with me later, right? Because you didn't get anything, right? So stay in touch with us, right? Ask questions. That's what we're here for, right? We're also different because we don't have you do what other kind of companies that do financial aid have you do, right? Now, because I'm involved in financial aid, whether it's on YouTube or my Instagram or on my Facebook, right? uh, I see all these ads for like different financial aid companies, right? And the one thing about our program is that we don't have you do the things that the other people do, right? The other places they say, oh, you need to buy this life insurance policy, you need to buy this annuity, right? Because they're trying to sell a financial product. We don't do that, right? We don't say that you have to have a 4.5 or a 1500 on your SATs. Right. And we also never tell a family you need to apply to these schools because they're going to give you more money, right? You go to the schools you want to go to. We see what we can do at those particular schools, right? Again, these other companies, they say, oh, we reduced the cost of this college by 40,000, by 50,000, by 60,000. But if you look at the actual college, it's not a college that you would ever think of sending your student to, right? So again, I tell families, come to the consultation, right? It's free, right? $0, right? You come sit down with me for 15, 20 minutes. We talk, we figure it out. If I can help, I'll let you know. If I can't, I'll send you on your way. Okay. So just make sure to do that. Now, just to kind of give you guys a little bit of a look into kind of what the results that we've been able to get. Here are some of our results, right? This student, their family, they made about $350,000 a year. We were able to get them $30,000 at Chapman, 35 at Fordham, $37,000 at University of San Diego, right? This family, they make $230,000, right? This student's headed to Davis, right? We were able to save them over $39,000. They only are paying $6,000 a year to go to UC Davis. Okay. We have another family, they make about 440, right? They own their own home, they have businesses, this and that, right? We were able to save them $42,000 a year at Baylor. Okay. So the opportunities are out there, right? So if you're a family that's in that income range, right? It makes sense to talk to me, right? But I always tell families, if your family makes over like $1 million, million five, million four, right? I probably can't help you, right? Again, there are unique situations where I may be able to, but if you're over that, I can't really help you. If you're under that, I probably have something in my bag of tricks for your family. Okay. So if you guys are interested in kind of, talking to us about either our college coaching programs or college application intensive or financial aid, you guys can text 949-298-6234. Okay. You can either text money for the financial aid, or you can text college for more info on our coaching programs and college application intensive. Okay. All right. So we do have some questions. I see them. And if other people have questions, please put them in the Q&A or in the chat, right? And then we can kind of go on and kind of like, end off today. All right. But let's go ahead and start off with the first question we have here. And it says, can you please talk about the CSS profile and non-custodial spouse refusing to fill out their portion? Okay. So the CSS profile has something called a non-custodial parent form, right? So it depends on the situation that you're in, right? So if you actually look at the CSS, right, it asks for the information on the biological parent, right? It also asks for information or biological kind of like biological parent one and biological parent two, right? Now, let's say that a family is separated and there's no contact with one of the parents, right? Then you can go ahead and fill out a non-custodial parent waiver, right? And that waiver will allow you to just use the custodial parent's information. Okay. Now, if there is a situation where the family, the parents are separated and the non-custodial parent is refusing to fill out their portion, there's also a section on the kind of non-custodial parent waiver to uh, tell the colleges about that. It's like we can't get any information from this person, right? Now, if again, every the family dynamics are very complicated, right? Now, depending on the situation, I think your situation might be a little bit more complicated. We should probably talk about it in private. But if there is like a reason why they're not filling it out, if there is kind of like a restraining order that and that's why they're not filling it out, or this or that, so on and so forth, we kind of have to get to the bottom of it. So I do suggest that you sign up for one of the a consultation with us, right? So we can talk about it a little bit more in private. But if they're refusing to fill it out, the non-custodial parent waiver also does have a kind of section where you can explain why they're not trying, why you either cannot get in contact with them, they're refusing to fill it out, whatever it is, right? So something to keep in mind there, right? We have another question here, and it says, how did a family with 230K AGI receive a Pell Grant? So that Pell Grant is still conditional. So that's probably going to drop off of their financial aid, right? But the other portions are solid, right? So the Pell Grant is something for families that are like way below kind of I'd probably say you have to be under like 50 grand or less, right? So as they kind of go through the auditing process, they throw everything onto your financial aid award and then they start taking things off, right? But we were still able, at the end of it, still able to save them a significant amount of money, right? It was probably close to around 38, $39,000. Okay. All right. Any other questions? I will do kind of last call here. All right. So I don't see any other questions coming in, right? Again, I'll leave this screen up just for a quick second so that people can go ahead and take a screenshot, text the number, whatever it is, right? But if you do have a little bit more of a complicated situation, it always makes sense to sit down, right? I don't charge like a lawyer for a consultation, right? Even though I was one, right? It's free, right? So we sit down, we talk about your situation, and then we'll see what we can do. Okay. So everyone have a great night, right? It is a little warmer where I am. I'm in the Bay Area, right? But it's going to cool down again in a couple days. So enjoy the weather. And if you guys do have any questions, make sure to reach out to us. Okay. All right. Everyone have a great night, and I'll talk to you guys again soon. Bye bye.